of my land.
1,000 generations living in now.
Here we go.
Hey, how's it going, guys? It's Griffin here from FilmSpeak. I really did not expect from Doctor Strange 2 or Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So this is coming out of Variety. So obviously this is correct. It's happened. In fact, Scott Derrickson tweeted about the matter. So according to Variety, Scott Derrickson is stepping down as director of Marvel's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, or Doctor Strange 2, as we all know it as. The studio confirmed his departure in a statement attributing it to creative differences. We all know what that means. Derrickson, who oversaw the first Doctor Strange, will remain on as an executive producer. This is the statement, I believe, that Marvel just put out. They said, Marvel Studios and Scott Derrickson have amicably parted ways on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness due to creative differences. We remain grateful to Scott for his contributions to the MCU. So pretty straightforward statement there. Derrickson also said the decision was mutual on his Twitter. He said, Marvel and I have mutually agreed to part ways on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness due to creative differences. Derrickson tweeted that out along with saying, I am thankful for our collaboration and will remain on as executive producer. Now, it should be noted that this film is supposed to begin production this May. And so whether or not there's going to be any delays or whatever remains to be seen. So I'm just going to check and see what the chat is looking like. Okay, nobody's really in there yet, but okay, whatever. I didn't really advertise this, so it was just kind of a spur of the moment sort of thing that I'm doing, but I'll continue on here. So yeah, Doctor Strange, I believe, is supposed to be, after Black Widow, it is supposed to be Marvel's next big thing. And they've now just lost their director, which I have to imagine is going to set things back quite a bit. Now, some people are kind of shocked by this. I personally am not. I'm just really disappointed about this news. It just, and I'll get into why it hasn't really sat well with me, but if we go back to a couple weeks ago, well, actually, if we should probably go back to Comic-Con with this one. So if we go back to Comic-Con, first of all, the film was announced, and it looked as though they were going to be taking it in a more horror-centric direction. So that's what Scott Derrickson kind of led us to believe. Every time Kevin Feige was sort of questioned about it, though, he kind of played coy, per se. When he was at Comic-Con and I was in Hall H and I remember it, he was kind of talking about, things are going to be a little bit crazy. It's going to get darker this time around. And we all know that, the MCU getting darker doesn't mean it's going to go that dark, but with Scott Derrickson at the helm, who has a background in horror, it really seemed like this was going to be a chance for him to flex his creative muscles. And it was one of the reasons why I was very excited for the project. To me, it seemed like Scott Derrickson came in to the project of Doctor Strange, did the first one, he did it the way Marvel wanted it to, but now with Phase 4, with them, supposedly taking risks and moving in a different direction, it felt like they were going to let Scott make the film that he wanted to make and go all out in the horror realm, obviously within reason, but, go into a more horror-centric direction. So it's interesting because a couple of weeks ago, I believe that Kevin Feige clarified his statements on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. He basically said that it will not be a horror movie, which is puzzling. So yeah, I mean, obviously this film's gonna have Benedict Cumberbatch in it. He was gonna be joined by Elizabeth Olsen as Scarlet Witch. It's one of those things where if you look into the mythology of Doctor Strange, you look into the mythology of, Scarlet Witch and this stuff. There are so many horror elements, in the lore, in the mythology of this character, um, and to just simply ignore them feels wrong. Um, one of the reasons Doctor Strange is so interesting is when, I'm not, by no means am I a Doctor Strange expert or know the lore all that well. So if you know it better than me, let me know. One of the things that I think is interesting is when he goes into like Mephisto's realm and like hell and stuff like that. You get some crossover with like Ghost Rider and whatnot. That to me is very interesting, just because of how it expands the lore and whatnot. And so I've always, like, that part of Doctor Strange I've always wanted to see explored, and it is such an inherent part of it's an inherent part of the character. And I saw this news and I was just like, what are we doing here, Marvel? What are you doing with Phase 4 in general? You say you're going to take risks. You say you're going to, move into a new direction, and allow these directors to really helm their projects. But when you're making decisions like this, it doesn't lead me to believe that that's the case. Now, I'm going to read what I initially tweeted out because I think this really wraps up my entire thoughts on the matter, and I think it's an interesting point to make. So last year, we got the Guillermo del Toro produced Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and I said, I'd like to point out that Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark did frightening yet accessible horror for a younger audience incredibly well. It treated its target demographic with respect. It is possible to do great family horror and not play it safe. Take risks. So that was the first tweet I made. And then the second tweet I made was that not everything needs to be so sanitized. You can make quality and genuinely scary horror films without the excess R-rated material. Horror is such a popular genre and people love being scared. Why not play into that? Be bold. It's not even that big of a risk. Now, I want to kind of touch on this one for a second. So, yes, when it comes to Marvel, there is a tendency for a lot of their projects to be sanitized. Now, I will give them credit. I do think they made some bold decisions when it came to Guardians of the Galaxy. I do think they made some bold decisions when it came to allowing a director like Taika Waititi to come in and do his thing. Obviously, like with Infinity War and Endgame, they played it up. Endgame especially, I think the middle section of that film, that weird kind of like time cop sort of thing, is different. It's unlike anything we've really seen before. And so I mean, you give them credit where credit is due. They while not the biggest risks, they have made attempts. Sorry, my phone's going off here. They have made attempts to do things out of the ordinary. But we're entering this new era, and I want to see them take big swings. And I feel like taking a property like Doctor Strange, you have a director like Scott Derrickson who has a proven background in horror, and successfully, he has a proven background in horror, I might add. Look, I mean, just look at a film like Sinister. Sinister is an excellent example. It's probably why he was brought on to direct Doctor Strange in the first place. If you're not going to allow him to do his thing and to see his vision through the way that it seemed like they were trying to do, like, what are we doing here? And so I think what it comes down to is that I don't know, because like I feel like Marvel doesn't understand that there are ways to do like less family friendly horror. Well, I shouldn't say family friendly, but there are ways to do family friendly horror in a way that is actually scary. Like, I don't know, man. Like, you even go back to like the first couple Harry Potter films. Are they horror films necessarily? No, but they're not afraid to play into the darker and more horrific elements. Like, what happened to younger audiences being able to be let in on like some of those scares and whatnot. Even like Amblin films had a certain horror element to it that I don't think we've necessarily seen as of late, like until Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which I think is an excellent movie because it's a gateway horror film. And the next thing I'll bring up is that, and I'm not trying to pit Marvel and DC against each other, but like look at DC and take a film like Shazam, for instance. Shazam wasn't afraid to dip its toes into its horror roots. In fact, it embraced it wholeheartedly, and I still consider that to be a genuinely family-friendly film. I mean, none of these comic book movies I would necessarily take like a 4-year-old to, and so yes, maybe the young audience would be scared, but not everything has to be tailored to them. So going back to Shazam though for a second, Shazam is not a straight up horror film. And I highly doubt Doctor Strange 2 would have been a straight up horror film. I think it would have leaned heavily into those horror elements, but I digress. So Shazam is not a straight up horror film, right? It's kind of like an Amblin movie. It is a family, it's an exploration of family, and it has horror elements included into it. They were dark, they were substantial, and again, similar to a film like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, it treated its audience with respect. They did not downplay it. There were some pretty chilling moments in Shazam. In fact, I'm pretty sure the film got a lot of flack for that. And to me, I mean, like, yeah, even you can even look at a film like Aquaman. Aquaman also just came to mind. James Wan, a lauded horror director. Look at Aquaman. Look at the trench sequences in that. There were some horror elements in that, but yet I wouldn't consider that a horror movie. I mean, I should note I don't know where Scott Derrickson, like what he wanted to do with the story, where he wanted to take it. But if you're this far into production and you're going to start shooting, you're going to start principal photography on this film in May, obviously, like, you were on board with the guy's idea. You were on board with this bold new vision. And for him to drop out right now, it doesn't bode well for the project. And it just kind of leaves me wondering, what was going on behind the scenes. Before I continue, I will address the chat here. So this upsets me. Yeah, dude, it upsets me too, because I hate to see, I really hate to see creators' visions just like, I hate to see big studios not take risks. And that's been one of the biggest criticisms of Marvel, is that they don't take risks. They play it relatively safe. Even when they do things that are ambitious, it's not like in the realm of like, I can't imagine it not succeeding per se. So, yes, they take some risks. I mean, Guardians of the Galaxy obviously is a risk, but it's a calculated risk, which I guess obviously all risks should be, but still, it's not something where I don't think they'd succeed. They have the backing behind them. But anyways, I'm going off weirdly on a tangent there. This is a very just laid back casual video. Yeah, this upsets me. Yeah, it upsets me too. I really hope Marvel and Derrickson can work this out in the future. I don't think it's gonna happen, man. I as much as I'd like to remain optimistic, I just don't think it's in the cards. It's not going to be in the same sort of. It's not the same sort of situation as like James Gunn and Marvel, where like Marvel pulled the trigger on letting James Gunn go way too early, and that whole debacle is ridiculous. But it's not an instance of them not. It's not an instance of Derrickson doing something and them letting him go. It's just an instance of the two creative forces here are disagreeing, and obviously with Marvel, they have their plan and they want to make sure that the film lines up with that. I can't help but feel that the end result is going to be far more sanitized and less ambitious than what we would have gotten had Derrickson been allowed to see his vision through. They should bring in Kevin Spacey. Oh God, George. Okay, Maverick MX. This is BS. I completely agree. It's BS. It really disappoints me. And I'm not usually one to get all up in arms about directors leaving and exiting, coming on to and exiting projects. But this one just really, I was just like, what are we, like, why? Like you had your end game. You had your the first 10 years of your franchise to play it safe, to build a core audience. No, be bold, do something different, and I just feel like that's not gonna happen. Jacoby, there's plenty of good PG-13 horror films like Insidious, Lights Out, The Ring, for example. Exactly. I completely agree. Now, you could argue that a lot of those movies play into a more adult audience, a more mature audience, and I would probably agree with you there. But that's the thing. This film it doesn't have to be R-rated excess, blood and guts, horror, body torture, whatever. It doesn't have to be that. You can make a relatively tame horror film and play into the atmospheric element, play into some of the hellish imagery. Like, why not? You can go there. Like, kids, I mean, come on, kids love that stuff. Kids enjoy a good scare. It's one of the reasons why they're always sneaking in to see horror films that they shouldn't necessarily be seeing. Like, and that's where I go back to the thing I originally said, where it's not even that big of a risk to make Doctor Strange to a horror film. Like, horror films are so popular right now. People love them. They love the experience of going to the theater to be frightened, and especially when it's done right and all the story elements and the character elements are in place. You can get some of the most compelling filmmaking out of horror films, and so I don't even understand why they wouldn't consider going in that direction. Like use practical effects. I keep going back to Scary Stories, but like use practical effects. Use just stuff at your disposal that we haven't necessarily seen from you before. It really bugs me. But yes, I agree. There are plenty of good PG-13 horror films, even good PG horror films. But Chandler, you can also say Aquaman provides horror elements as well. It's directed by a horror director. Yes, like I mentioned before, James Wan doing Aquaman and adding in those horror flavors. Listen, I'm sure James Wan could have gone darker with Aquaman if he really wanted to. He's that kind of filmmaker, but he didn't, obviously, and I don't think it would have been good for that film. But it seemed like everything they were doing here, like with Scarlet Witch kind of going crazy after the death of Vision and the results of WandaVision, which is just this wacky Elseworld kind of thing. I have no idea what they're going to do with Scarlet Witch, but I feel like they were taking her in a darker direction, and then pairing her with Doctor Strange to go on this twisted hellish nightmare. Like, what? Why not? That sounds awesome. I mean, come on. Let's go in here. Jaren Talks Movies. What's up, man? I'm late to the stream. Hey, no worries, man. I just started. I'm just kind of ranting away at this nonsense here. Shifty, Quiet Place was PG-13. Come on, Marvel. It's hardly a risk. Yeah, exactly. I keep going back to that. I keep going back to the fact that I don't even it's a horror movie. Like, come on, guys. We're not asking you to make Doctor Strange Saw. Like, you can do it within reason and in a way that treats your core audience, which I guess are teenagers and tweens and whatnot. You can do it in a way that treats them with respect. And here's the cool thing. If you make one, I look at these comic book movies and I think, these are great gateway films for a younger audience to be introduced to genres that they haven't necessarily really delved into before. So take Captain America, The Winter Soldier, for instance. While I don't necessarily think it's a through and through political thriller, it borrows elements of, political thrillers, and it tries to be something more than just a rock'em sock'em comic book film. And so someone younger might go watch that and be like, "Ooh, I really like these like spy elements that are in there, the untrustworthy government and all this stuff, the fact that it's rooted in reality." Like a younger audience member could look at that and be like, I want to go watch what is it, The French Connection, or something like that, that, and then they start going down a spiral, and they discover different kinds of films that they wouldn't have otherwise. And I think that's an amazing thing. So if Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness had leaned into those horror elements that I think many of us were very excited for, you get a whole new audience that discovers horror, and especially if it treats the core audience, the target demographic, with respect. They'll be like, wow, I love like the creature design, I love the practicality of this, I love the feeling of just being scared or whatever. And so they go down, they go down a rabbit hole. Maybe they start with Scott Derrickson's Sinister, maybe they move on from there to like something like The Ring or whatever, and then from there they're introduced to a whole catalog of movies. And I think that is the power that these comic book films have. And I mean, like even Joker, I mean, not that younger audience members should be really watching Joker, but like, I mean, Joker wears its influences on its sleeve. So it's like, okay, I want to watch something like this. Okay, so go watch Taxi Driver, go watch King of Comedy. Boom, there you go. It kind of boggles my mind that they wouldn't even consider doing that. But anyways, going back to the chat, yeah, it's crazy. They need to lighten up and realize sometimes certain artists have a bigger vision that could be better. I agree. Now, I mean, like I'm all for giving the filmmaker the most creative freedom they can, but obviously, I mean, they're building a universe. It has to be within reason, and it has to align with their plan. Scott Derrickson leaving a matter of months before they were supposed to shoot principal photography. Obviously, the story was aligned with their plan. It just seems like he wanted to go a little edgier, maybe really make this as a through and through horror film, and it seemed like Kevin Feige wasn't digging it, which which is really puzzling to me, especially when they have something like WandaVision coming out, which he's lauding as this just complete insane off the walls sort of ideas. So yeah, Chandler, what upsets me the most is that Derrickson makes Doctor Strange not made the visuals fantastic, but it is that wisdom type of tone that makes it feel that feels really unique. Yeah, I guess I think I know what you're saying in there. Well, full transparency, I'm not the biggest fan of that original Doctor Strange. I think Scott Derrickson's talents are somewhat wasted. I think there are times when you can feel his horror influence in there, but to me it's just kind of it's safe. I mean, it's like doing Iron Man, but like with crazy wacky visuals, which is kind of, I was watching Inception last night, and it was kind of mind-blowing to me that people think that Doctor Strange is like a mixture of Inception and Iron Man and all this stuff, and I'm like, well, Doctor Strange superficially borrows from Inception. It doesn't actually really connect. Anyways, that's a bit of a tangent, but yes, I mean, Derrickson was a steady hand for that film, and I think in the follow-up, he was looking to make the film that he probably wanted to make the first time around, take some more risks and whatnot. So this reminds me of the whole Tim Miller leaving Deadpool 2 over creative differences. Yeah, little bit. I think, well, actually, no, you're probably right, because I think Tim Miller wanted to lean more into the character drama. He wanted to give Vanessa a fuller arc and whatnot. I actually spoke to Tim Miller about that, and that was one of the things that that kind of blew me away. He wanted to bring the Thing into the film and whatnot. So yes, and obviously Ryan wanted to play into the comedy that really worked with the original Deadpool. So yeah, it is a little bit of that. Let's go back to, I'm losing the chat here. Chandler, the darker edge would have made the wisdom tone very interesting, mostly because it's still in charge with the same person. Having a different director behind the wheel gets me nervous. I'm not necessarily nervous about the prospect of a new director. I'm nervous about them toning it down. I want it to be a horror film. I want it to be unafraid to play into those elements. I want it to be Marvel's Shazam. Obviously with less comedy, but still, you know how Shazam is rooted in those dark elements. I mean, that's Doctor Strange. So why not play into the inherent mythology of the character? Don't be afraid of it. That's why people love him. So yeah, I feel like it would be a totally different movie. I mean, we'll see. You know, I would have been down for horror, like superhero movie, as the MCU play into mixing in genres, like Captain America as a political thriller, Guardians of Thor as comedies, and Ant-Man as a heist movie. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like Marvel always pitches themselves on saying, "Oh, we're genre blending stuff here. We are making we're making a 70s political thriller with The Winter Soldier." I mean, yes and no, but we're doing a heist movie with Ant-Man, which I think they actually succeeded in. We're with Guardians of the Galaxy. It's this weird sort of space action adventure movie, which it definitely is. Thor's the only one where I'm like, well, what are we doing with Thor right now? But that's a conversation for later time. But yeah, I mean, you know, they thrive on, you know, creating superhero films and telling superhero stories that are within a certain subgenre. And so to me, I mean, they haven't done a horror movie yet. Why not take a character who really works in that realm and go crazy with it? Obviously within reason, but I don't think somebody tells me that whatever Derrickson had in mind was not out of reason or whatever. Okay, Explosive Phoenix. What directors could you see being interested in Doctor Strange 2? Yeah, this was actually the second part that I wanted to bring up, and I actually want to defer to you all. Let me know who you would like to see take over for Doctor Strange 2 down in the comments section below. I have really just one name in mind, but I don't even think they would go with him, given the fact that they let Derrickson go. I'll get to that in a second, but let me know your picks down in the comment section below. Jacoby, imagine Mike Flanagan doing Doctor Strange 2. It won't happen, but after seeing Doctor Sleep, he'd be a great replacement. Yeah, Mike Flanagan would be an excellent replacement. He's not going to tone down his style for Marvel. I mean, why Mike Flanagan is so good is he excels at creating atmospheric horror. I think, I mean, you look at Doctor Sleep, you look at The Haunting of Hill House. I mean, the man is a master craftsman when it comes to you know, stories and horror films that, you know, have a nice emotional backbone, but also get under your skin and kind of unsettle you. And so, like, if Marvel isn't gonna want to go with Scott Derrickson's direction after he made the first Doctor Strange, I don't think they're gonna, you know, tap someone like Mike Flanagan to come in and you know, where he's not gonna really be able to do what he does best. That doesn't really make sense to me. But if they were open to maybe leaning into that horror element, yeah, Mike Flanagan's a great choice. Disney seems to have an issue as of late to keep directors and undergoing extensive reshoots of many of their blockbusters. I hope that they try to break out of their formula. Yeah, I'm not too worried about the reshoots necessarily. And I think what you're referring to, the you know, directors coming and going, that's really only been an issue with Lucasfilm, I think. Marvel's been pretty good at keeping their talent on board, so which is another reason why this is a bit of a shock, you know. So I don't know. It's yeah, I don't know. It just keeps going back to that whole thing where it's like, come on, I want Disney under the Bob Iger regime to stop playing it so safe. It's just so many of their projects and their properties feel like they've been feel like they're missed potential because of Yeah, because of an overall, safety net, because they want to make it universally family friendly, which I get it. Yes, it's Disney. Their films should be somewhat family friendly, but you can make things for an older audience. You can make things that don't necessarily have the mouse stamp of approval. I don't know if they ever will, but like, isn't that why you bought 20th Century Fox? Isn't that why you have isn't that why you have films like Ad Astra and Underwater as right now? Isn't that why you have films like that coming out so that you can do more mature stuff? So like, anyways, that's a completely different conversation. But next question here. I don't particularly care for the first Doctor Strange. Yeah, I don't really either. But I was interested in what they were going to do with the horror elements in this. Completely agree. I think the first Doctor Strange is once again, it's pretty forgettable. It's Marvel playing it safe, and they kind of throw some flashy visuals in there. But yes, with this sequel, and especially considering how they wanted to give it a horror edge, or that's at least how Kevin Feige sort of pitched it initially when he announced the Multiverse of Madness at Comic-Con. That was intriguing because it was bold, it was different, it was it played in Scott Derrickson's strengths, and unfortunately, we're probably not going to get that. Ryan O'Toole. Hey, Ryan. How's it going, buddy? This news just came out when I saw Cumberbatch in 1917. Yeah, I mean, it's a shame. I mean, once again, I'm not really surprised after, Feige making the statements that, well, it's not really going to be a horror movie. I don't really know what to say, but it's disappointing. And and here's the other side of it. I'm sure the actors were probably looking forward to being a part of a project that had a distinct vision, that was doing something different. Which, listen, Multiverse of Madness may very well still be wacky, crazy, or whatever, but like, I don't know, something about that, like playing into some of the the nightmarish imagery, the hellish side of things, like going through this crazy, just horror adventure or whatnot. That's interesting, and to me, for an actor like Benedict Cumberbatch, that would give him something different to sink his teeth into. Obviously, along with furthering the character and whatnot, but like. Yeah, I don't know. I feel bad for the actors because it's like, well, now we're gonna tone down the horror elements that maybe excited you. So that's always disappointing. Especially the scene where the Ancient One, since Doctor Strange went on that fucking magic trip, like the viewer was high off drugs. Yeah, that's a part that definitely plays into Derrickson's strengths, but that was about the extent of it. Or that's why they have Deadpool on the MCU, to keep him R-rated. Yeah, well, we don't even know if Deadpool's going to be R-rated anymore, unless that's changed. Which, if it's changed, you can let me know. But they might try and sanitize Deadpool too. Who knows? Hey Jacob, how's it going, man? I didn't like the first Doctor Strange because I didn't like the character at the time, but now he's had one of the best developments, so it's a shame. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, given his arc in Endgame, or in Infinity War and Endgame, and seeing where he ended, seeing where he left off at the end of Doctor Strange, and then seeing his progression through the last two Avengers films, I thought was excellent. I actually really enjoyed what they did with the character in those movies, and so I was looking forward to seeing that Doctor Strange placed into a a very auteur, or not necessarily auteur, but like a distinct new vision for this character. So yeah, I mean, like, that was, I agree. I was also looking forward to that, and it doesn't look like we're going to get that. Be sure to let me know who you guys would want to see direct Doctor Strange 2 down in the comments section, or if you're watching this on the replay, or in the live chat right now. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna let you know who I would love to see, but I don't think they'll do it. So I just want to make sure I have his name right. So going back to Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which I think is, once again, if you haven't seen Scary Stories, I think it's an excellent movie and you should go check it out. Especially if you're a younger viewer and you're looking to get into horror, that's a perfect gateway horror movie, which, Doctor Strange 2 could have been a perfect gateway horror film, but I digress. So someone that I'd like to see tackle this sort of film is Andre Overdahl, who really proved himself with Scary Stories. He treated like I've been preaching throughout this entire live stream, he treated the target audience with respect. He was a big fan of practicality. He was able to create fear and an overall unsettling atmosphere without resorting to the extremes that an R rating would require. And it clearly shows that he can make accessible horror films for a wider audience. So and I would love to see someone like that on there. So going back to the chat, who would you like to see replace Derrickson? So yes, well, first of all, thank you, Shifty, for the super chat. Really appreciate that. Yes, I would. Andre Overdahl would be my pick right now, or just someone else in the horror, I guess, community. So, someone mentioned Eli Roth, which sounds like a wild card, right? I mean, the dude who did like Hostel, Green Inferno, he's really known for his torture porn kind of stuff. But he also made a pretty effective, family oriented, not necessarily horror film, but like it had horror elements in there with the House with a Clock on Its Walls, which, if you haven't seen that movie, it's actually pretty good. It's one of Jack Nicholson's better performances, or really one of his only performances outside of Jumanji as of late. But anyways, yeah. So like I think he would also maybe be an interesting choice. I'm not 100% sold on him just because it is Eli Roth. I don't think he's necessarily the greatest director, but once again, he has a proven track record in that I guess family but accessible kind of horror realm, which is what I want to see from them. So maybe him. Hey, 3C, how's it going, dude? I wonder if sometimes biting the bullet on the creative direction the studio wants could open the door for Derrickson to make films that he wants in the future, kind of like a Taiki. Yeah, no, I mean, like that. If there is one positive to take out of this, you mean Jack Black? Oh yeah, did I not say Jack Black? I don't even remember what I said. So yeah, if there is one positive to take out of this, it's that Derrickson, he's a free agent and he can go and make whatever he wants. He's got a proven track record in the MCU with Doctor Strange. It was a critical and commercial success. He's a guy who has a vision, so I'm hoping that he goes back to his horror roots and does something really exciting and original, because I always like to see filmmakers bounce back with great original ideas. Hashtag release the Derrickson cut. Yeah. Although he hasn't even started making the movie, so we don't even know what that would be. But I guess the other question here is, he was a co-writer on the script, so is he not going to get script credits? Are they going to completely scrap his idea and move on with something else? Are they going to undergo rewrites? Something tells me that this film is going to be pushed back quite a bit. I've seen Jordan Peele and Ari Aster as a lot of people's picks, but I don't think, oh my god, if they can't even get Scott Derrickson to do Doctor Strange and, moderately lean into the horror elements, you're never going to get someone like Jordan Peele or Ari Aster, nor would they ever be interested in doing Doctor Strange. These are indie gods. These guys are at the top of their game in the independent film world and in the independent low to mid-budget horror realm. So it's like they would never in a million years consider that. And if they did, I'd be shocked, especially someone like Ari Aster, who, like, if he's not like at least afforded an R rating, I don't even know if he could do it. So there's that. Keep up the great work, Griff. Like the sweatshirt, man. Oh, thank you, dude. Really appreciate it. Glad to have you chime in here for a little bit. Tim Hickson, James Wan would be an interesting to see direct. Edgar Wright, Robert Eggers would also be interesting, though most of his films are too dark. Yeah, Robert Eggers is another guy. He would never do a Marvel film. You want to talk about, if you want to get a good sense for the kind of person Robert Eggers is, go listen to his A24 podcast conversation with Ari Aster. That guy is he's interested in his own original content, and there's like a level of, I feel like a project like this he would consider to be beneath him, which is not a slight on Robert Eggers at all. The man is phenomenal. He crafted one of my favorite films of the year last year. So, yeah, I mean, it'd be cool, but nah, I can't see it. Edgar Wright, they tried once with him. Obviously, Wright is another guy who's like wants to stick to his vision, so I can't really envision that. James Wan, maybe, but he's out, working in the Conjuring universe. He's doing stuff with Aquaman and DC, and he seems to have the creative freedom that he wants from those projects. So I can't see him coming in to a property like this, where, I mean, yes, directors are allowed creative freedom, but it's like under supervision. So, I mean, unless you're someone like James Gunn or Taika Waititi, who's kind of like proven that your wacky creative vision is accepted by the audience, they don't seem to want to, I guess, like take risks like that, which is just kind of baffling to me. Ryan Fede Alvarez. I mean, obviously, yeah, I'd love to see it. I mean, once again, I don't know if he's interested in toning down his style or like his horror stuff. I think when it comes to who's gonna replace Derrickson, you have to look at people who have done work in the family horror genre or something like that. Like people who can reach a younger audience, and I don't think Fetty is quite there. I mean, yeah, Don't Breathe is excellent. Evil Dead Remake, excellent. Great PG-13 horror movies, but I like both of those movies are not films that, or at least I think Don't Breathe was PG-13. I could be wrong on that, but both films are they're the types of movies I can't see like Marvel wanting to go down. But then again, James Gunn did a lot of really mature and crass stuff in his younger age in terms of filmmaking. So who knows? Also, Taika Waititi just made Jojo Rabbit. And Taika Waititi also did a bunch of really, R-rated comedies. So I guess there's that side to it. But I feel like people who have a history in comedy probably fare better than people who have a history in horror, because, comedy can be adapted, I feel like. So can horror, but like there's something a little more accessible about comedic directors, I guess. I don't know, just my personal take. But whereas like I feel like horror directors, like asking them to be less creepy is or be less like scary, it that feels wrong. Like, I don't know, it could just be my interpretation. Rob Letterman, he did Goosebumps and Detective Pikachu. Rob Letterman is a great choice because once again, Goosebumps, nice family friendly movie that had like ghoulish elements to it. It's not a straight horror film, but there are definitely sides to it. Rob Letterman's a good choice, and yeah, Detective Pikachu is a great movie. So I would be curious to see that. Maybe Gore Verbinski. Verbinski's an interesting one because he's got a proven track record inside within Disney, but then also out on his own doing stuff like A Cure for Wellness or like what the hell is the other one? The Ring, for God's sake. I love Gore Verbinski, and I think he would be an excellent choice, especially because he is familiar with this sort of thing. So, that's a great pick, and I think he's an incredibly underrated filmmaker. Gore Verbinski is the man. You go back and you rewatch The Ring, the film still holds up. It's a great movie, and then also Cure for Wellness is one of the most criminally underrated films of the past decade or so. So yeah, I'm in love with that one. And James Gunn did do Slither. Yeah, James Gunn did Slither, which is kind of like which is why James Gunn, I guess, is just like the weirdest pick out of all the Marvel filmmakers, just given his past. But I don't know. We've seen Marvel take risks on filmmakers that have an edge to them. So maybe this really is just like an instance of them not agreeing on like certain story points or whatever. I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. Something tells me that Derrickson wanted to go the horror route. Feige wasn't feeling that because it would probably alienate some audience members, even though it's not going to. And I think that's where we're at now. And it's really unfortunate. It really is, because I would have liked to have seen a Doctor Strange under the vision of Scott Derrickson. He did do the first one, but I feel like he was holding back. And so, like, unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever get to see that. James Wan and the director of Shazam had their roots in horror. So did Sam Raimi when he directed Spider-Man. Exactly. All three of which would be inspired choices to take over for Scott Derrickson. Unfortunately, I don't think Sam Raimi would ever do that. But then, like I mentioned, James Wan maybe, but he seems to have a good gig over at DC. Maybe director of Shazam, which I think is Dan Trachtenberg. I might be wrong on that one. I'm sorry, David F. Sandberg. Yeah. He'd be a great choice, especially because he did like this sort of thing in the DC universe. So yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I mean those would be great choices, but I don't know if Marvel would want the darkness that like David F. Sandberg could bring. So Shifty, John Krasinski, comedy, PG-13 horror background. He's a young director looking to get another good choice. I think, look at his work on A Quiet Place. I think that's definitely accessible for a younger audience, without being too edgy, without going into like, I don't know, like demonic imagery or whatnot. So yeah, I think John Krasinski could be someone of interest, especially because he was, almost Captain America before Chris Evans got the part. So it would be interesting to kind of see him circle back around to Marvel and direct a film. Whether or not they go for someone, whether or not he's, I'm sorry, not go for him, but whether or not he's interested in something like that, remains to be seen. But similar to Gore Verbinski, I think that's a great pick. So far the three that I'm kind of digging right now are Andre Overdahl, Gore Verbinski, and now John Krasinski. One more question here. So what about Francis Lawrence? He did I Am Legend in the Hunger Games sequel. Yeah, I mean that's interesting. Yeah, Francis Lawrence would be. Yeah, I mean I don't know. I feel like I guess he could be a good choice. I haven't really thought about that, but I guess that's he does have experience in with this target demographic, with the Hunger Games and stuff, and then obviously I Am Legend is I believe it's PG-13, or maybe and there's like a cut of it that's R. I don't even remember, but yeah, I mean that's maybe Francis Lawrence is the answer. I have no idea. Guys, if you are watching this and you want my take on anything regarding the Doctor Strange debacle, be sure to chime in the live chat. You can leave a super chat if you want to make sure your question gets answered. Though I'm pretty sure it'll just get answered, so don't feel pressured. What if Christopher Nolan did Doctor Strange? I mean, Christian Bale's in talk for Love and Thunder. Yeah, I mean, Christian Bale being in talk for Love and Thunder, I think speaks more to Bale wanting to work with a filmmaker like Taika Waititi. Christopher Nolan would never, ever in a million years do anything under Marvel. I can't even imagine that someone who needs like just an absurd amount of, not even absurd, but like a massive amount of creative freedom. Like I don't think he could work under the confines of like a franchise like that. He did his thing with he did his thing with in DC with the Dark Knight trilogy. I don't think he'll ever go back to superheroes, to be honest with you. I mean, especially he was like an EP on Man of Steel, so it's like he's done. But I mean, Christopher Nolan getting to play around with other superheroes is an exciting idea. Just don't think he'd ever do it. Tim Hickson, what about Mark Forster? Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, like he would be an interesting choice. Here's when it comes down to directors that I want to see tackle the project. I just want to see them go with someone who has a vision, who is a filmmaker with a proven track record and has a vision. I don't want them to go with like just a company man like Jon Favreau or like Ron Howard. Like that would be so boring, so predictable. Obviously you'll get like a well-made movie, but it'll feel like just like a corporate video package. Like it won't feel like a movie with a vision. Which is, one of the reasons why I'm just like upset about this whole Scott Derrickson thing. I'm like, come on, guys. It's like, just go a little bit. Take that extra leap, Don't be afraid to play into a subgenre that you haven't done before and that you can easily amass a following with. Like, it's just, It blows my mind. A couple more questions here, then I'll probably call it quits. I've been going for like 50 minutes, and I didn't really mean to go that long, but, you know, questions keep coming in. I know Jennifer, I know this ain't going to happen, but imagine Jennifer Kent is, between the Babadook and the Nightingale, she is incredible. So yeah, I mean, like, well, then again, I don't know if I'd want to see her tackle like big franchise stuff because she has such a distinct voice. I don't know, but yeah. So I want to see Zack Snyder go to Marvel. Yeah. If Zack Snyder can't even see his vision realized with DC, it's never gonna happen with Marvel. But you know, Zack Snyder's another guy who could. Yeah, I guess he could do. You know, he has like done horror films in the past and done stuff that has horror elements. Obviously, I think he's someone who's a little bit more of an edge, but yeah, I mean, who knows? But then again, I'd be very shocked if that ever happened. Martin Scorsese seems right up his alley. Yeah, you know, old Marty's doing nothing, so why not? Lee Wannell probably. You know, you never know. But anyways, guys, I think I'm going to call this one. This was really just a spur of the moment mini rant. I didn't even really rant that much. I think it's just because I'm in the middle of working on my top 10 best films of the best films of 2019 video. So I was hoping to get that out to you today, but that'll probably be out tomorrow or something along those lines. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you are catching this on the replay, be sure to let me know your thoughts and opinions on this whole fiasco that's going down with Marvel and Scott Derrickson leaving Doctor Strange 2. I'd love to hear from you. And then also be sure to let me know your pick for who you'd like to see direct Doctor Strange 2. Like, you know, there's obviously a vacancy there, so and they got to fill it at some point. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. But anyways, guys, if you like this video and you like everything I'm doing here, you can you know, like it, share with your friends. This is a weird one to probably share with them, but you can share with your friends, and you can subscribe to this channel for more sometimes occasional videos like this, but more so movie reviews, some analytical videos, award season shows, and all that good stuff. You can also like FilmSpeak on Facebook, follow us on Twitter simply by searching FilmSpeak, and if you like me specifically and you like what I have to say, you can give me a follow on Twitter at Griff Schiller. I can't even speak right now, but anyways, guys, it's been great chatting with you all. If you are catching this on the replay, love to hear from you. So until next time, guys, take care.